everybody, welcome to another episode of Jktv. I'm Jeremy, and today I am going to teach you how to make a super delicious classic apple pie. Now, making apple pie is not very easy, and it kind of takes a long time. But if you follow my steps and you follow directions, then you should be able to make a pretty good apple pie. So let's start by talking about the ingredients. All right, so of course we have our Granny Smith apples. Now, I use a green apple, a baking apple. The reason I do this is because when I bake them, green apples will actually still stay hard and you'll still get that nice mouthful of eating an apple. Whereas if I use a really soft apple, when I bake it, maybe it'll turn into soup and it won't be very nice. So that's why I use green apples. I also use them because they're a little bit sour, so that means the apple pie will be a little bit less sweet. So I really highly suggest you use a green apple for your apple pie. Over here, we have some of our spices. Now, we're gonna add the classic fall flavor to the apple pie, which in America is gonna be a mixture of cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and cloves. When you mix those four spices together, it gives that classic fall or winter flavor that a lot of people really like. Next, to keep the filling together and kind of act like the glue, we're gonna use tapioca starch. Now, a lot of apple pies use cornstarch to kind of keep everything together, but I kind of think that cornstarch doesn't have a very nice mouthfeel. When you're eating it, it doesn't feel very nice. And so that's why I use tapioca starch, because I just think it has a better feel in the mouth. So we're gonna use tapioca starch. I like to add a little bit of bourbon. I love cooking with whiskey. And I think an apple pie with the apple and the spices, I think the smokiness of the whiskey is a really great flavor addition. Now, also for an apple pie, a lot of recipes will call for lemon or lemon juice or lime juice. I think that's okay. You want to put some acid in the pie to give it that sour flavor, but when you use lemon, it's gonna give the flavor of lemon. I don't wanna do that. I want it to be an apple pie. And so we are actually gonna use apple cider vinegar to give it a little bit of a sour flavor, but still keep that apple flavor that everybody knows and everybody loves. Finally, we have our brown sugar, and we have a pre-baked, blind-baked pie crust. Now, if you don't know about this, check out my last video where me and Lynn taught you guys how to make blind-baked pie crusts, and you'll be able to make one of these as well. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. All right, so of course the star of the apple pie are the apples. So we're gonna get these ready first. So the first step is we need to peel them, we need to core them, and we need to slice them. Okay, now that the apples are done, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add in the brown sugar. Let's get that in, mix that around. We're also going to add in the cinnamon and the ginger and the cloves and the nutmeg. And now we're just gonna go ahead and mix that all together. So let's go ahead and do that for a minute. All right, now that we've got the apples covered in the sugar and the spices, we're gonna add a little bit of flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of bourbon whiskey. Let's go ahead and do that. And we're gonna add half a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. If you don't have this, you can use lime juice, lemon juice, whatever you wanna use. Let's go ahead and put that in. So this is one of the first technique steps for making a good apple pie. Now, if I take this and I dump it into my apple pie shell right now, what will happen is as I bake it, the apples will lose volume and they'll get smaller and smaller. And what will happen is there will be like a big bowl inside the apple pie. It will sink and it won't look very good. So what we want to do is we want to reduce the volume of the apples now. How do we do that? We do that with a big word in baking, which is called to masticate. Masticate is when you put sugar on fruit and you let it just sit. And what will happen is it will start to shrink. It will draw out the juices from the fruit and it will get smaller and smaller. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let these apples sit in this sugar and spice for about 3 hours. We're gonna cover it with plastic, and then after 3 hours, you'll see a lot has changed. All right, so after 3 hours of letting the apples masticate, as you can see, it's gotten much smaller. There's lost a lot of volume, and you see at the bottom of this bowl, there's a bunch of liquid, okay? That's the good stuff. That's all the flavor. That's all the delicious apple juice and brown sugar and spices. So you definitely want to keep that and put all of that in your apple pie, because that is what's gonna make your apple pie taste really good. All right, so now I forgot one step earlier. I forgot to add the salt. So we're just gonna go ahead and add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That's okay. We're gonna go ahead and mix that in real quick. So even bakers who own bakeries, they sometimes forget to add ingredients. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the apples inside of our pie crust. Now, some people might just go ahead and pour the whole bowl into the pie crust, and maybe that's okay, but I really don't like to have a soggy pie crust or a wet pie crust. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna separate the apple from the juices, and I'm gonna put the juices in at the very last moment, right before I put it in the oven. And that's just my way of trying to make sure that the bottom of the crust doesn't get soggy or not nice. So let's go ahead and let's get the apples inside the pie crust and try to keep the juices inside the bowl. All right, so this is what it's gonna look like after that. And now we still have all this liquid. Let's see how much liquid we have. We have about, we have about 175 grams of liquid. We're gonna keep this. We're not gonna throw it away. We're gonna keep this and we're gonna add it in at the very end. So let's go ahead and set that to the side. Okay, for this next step, we're gonna add the lattice weave top to the top of the apple pie. I'm not very good at that, so I invited Lynn from the last video, the pie crust video, to actually come and show us a little bit of how to make the lattice weave crust.
Mình đã có đao bày sẵn, bây giờ mình sẽ cắt nó ra để làm mặt bánh nhé.
Now that Lynn has cut the pie dough into strips, she's gonna lay it out in a pattern and do what we call a lattice form pattern. Lynn, do you have any other tips about making the pie crust?
Chúng ta cần phải bọc pie bằng 1/3 chưa được nướng để cho phần pie phía dưới nó sẽ không bị cháy khi chúng ta nướng.
So you want to cover all the baked pie crust with unbaked pie crust so it doesn't burn. So now we're going to go ahead and do an egg wash. Go ahead and do an egg wash. While she's doing the egg wash, I haven't forgot about all this delicious flavor, and there's one more ingredient, our tapioca starch. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and mix the tapioca starch into our apple juice and sugar and spice mixture, and we're just gonna mix it really, really well. So let's go ahead and start to mix that in. We don't want any big pieces of tapioca starch, so we're gonna mix, 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 mix. All right, now that Lynn has done the egg wash and I have mixed the tapioca starch into the juices and sugar, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slowly and carefully pour a little bit into all these different holes, and this is gonna be the main flavor. It's also what's gonna thicken it so that when you cut a slice, it makes a nice clean cut. Okay, now it is time to put this in the oven. You want to put it in a pretty hot oven, about 200 degrees Celsius. Now, here's the secret to making a good apple pie. The crust is going to bake very fast, maybe in 15-20 minutes. It will bake and it will be ready, and maybe sometimes you'll think, oh, it's done. No, 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 it's not done. The inside is still baking, and if you take it out too soon, it's gonna be a really undercooked, watery, not nice apple pie. So the secret, one of the other secrets to making a good apple pie is to actually use a temperature gauge, and what you wanna do is test the inside of the pie. Once the pie reaches 195 degrees Fahrenheit, that means the apples have fully cooked and the gel in the tapioca is gotten thick, but it hasn't overcooked and be turned into like a soup or something not nice. So the magical number is 195F. So what you're gonna wanna do is put it in the oven, and maybe after about 20-30 minutes, it will have a nice golden brown top, but the inside is maybe only 150 degrees. That's okay. Cover it with some aluminum foil so you don't burn the top, put it back in the oven, and keep baking until the internal temperature reaches 195 degrees. That's gonna be about an hour, hour and a half. It depends on your oven, it depends on your mood, it depends on many different things. So trust the temperature gauge, don't trust a clock, and don't trust your eye. All right, Lynn, let's go ahead and get into the oven. You wanna take it? All right, so now we have it out of the oven. We've let it cool down for a while. This is in my opinion, a beautiful apple pie. We have the nice golden, buttery, flaky crust, nice spiced, a little bit of rum, a little bit sour, not too sweet filling. This reminds me of childhood, reminds me of really good memories. So we're gonna go ahead and take it out and cut a slice. In the meantime, if you liked this video, please check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Drop by our shop here in Da Nang. We love meeting new people, and we'd love to meet you. So we hope you have a great day.